our Matt cut second interview. Our first interview went really well.
It was a little louder. This one's a quieter spot.
Yes, we worked really hard to find a quiet spot, but few questions. Just wanted to find out a little bit more about lodging industry or what is relevant for lodging industry. So I'll make it very quick. Small business. What are few things small business hotels specifically can do to increase their presence online?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it is a small, little, or just a hotel just wants to increase their business.
Whether it's a hotel or a bed and breakfast or whatever, I mean, the first and the easiest one is you have to have a domain name. You have to have something where you have a place on the web.
Okay.
And it really makes a big difference if you have something that's brandable.
Okay.
You know, and if it's just something that's sort of generic, then people don't always remember it that well. But if it's something where you can tell, hey, this is the name of our place, this is the place to go to, that works really well. I've mentioned before, having a blog is wonderful because it can introduce the site a little bit and show a little bit of personality.
Right.
And you know, I was down in LA this past weekend and I used a bunch of tourist sites, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the hotel site was all about the hotel, but they didn't have anything about where to go, places to visit, anything like that. And so we might touch on it later, but if you, as a small hotel, can take some pictures of the nearby attractions, you know, what are the things to do in your area? You know, here's a day trip agenda, here are the things to see. Then that helps your visitors because they can find places to go. But it's also great because you can just rank for that content, which can pull people to your hotel site.
Exactly. So the blog should not be about general manager. The blog should be about things to do in the neighborhood.
Things in that area absolutely are a great way to do it.
Okay. Great. So let's say if you have to pick only three things you can do to improve the performance of your site.
Absolutely. I think testing is huge. So one of the tools that we've been talking about a little bit more at the SES San Jose is the website optimizer.
Okay.
You know, and just the ability to have, you know, so one would be the website optimizer. You can try out all sorts of different things.
Mm-hmm.
What we found is whenever you have, you know, click here to sign up or click here to apply, if you make it look like a button, people are more likely to click on it. And sometimes just tiny changes in the wording can make people more likely to click and do that reservation. So testing, especially using Website Optimizer or any other similar tool is great. Another fantastic tool, it happens to be a Google tool, is Google Analytics. Because if you can look through your server logs, you can dig through your server logs, and that's okay. But Analytics will tell you all the individual words that people are using to find your site. And it can use both advertising or your raw server logs. And you can even make funnels, and so you can say, okay, where are my conversion targets? Did they sign up for a newsletter? Did they actually do a reservation? And so that's a fantastic way to just keep an eye on stuff without having to wade through the volume yourself. And then Webmaster Tools is another great one because, you know, just looking at your backlinks, seeing what your backlinks are and coming up with new ideas for backlinks based off of that.
Backlinks, yes.
Totally. Crawl issues, you can see if your site is slow, so those are all really good.
Now, these are the tools. Let's say, what can we improve on? What are a few things hotels or businesses can do if they have to improve the content of their website, or if they improve the quality of the site?
Yeah, I think if a great rule of thumb is, you know, ask another person to take a look at a site. Because it's easy to get your blinders on and you're like, okay, I want to drive people to get a reservation. And yet, unless you have something simple like have the phone number on every page of your site, so that if you land on one page, they can still call you and they can make a reservation. Or, you know, as I mentioned earlier, having the places where you can go. Some of the best hotel sites that I've been to, or even bed and breakfast sites, they'll say things like, oh, you want to go to this place called Daffodil Hill? You don't want to go at 9 a.m. when it opens up because it'll be crowded. You don't want to go at noon, so go about 10 or 11.
Right.
And when a visitor gets that kind of real-world information that you already have because you're part of the community, they feel so grateful and they really feel like, okay, I'm more likely to trust this site.
Exactly. Yeah, I run into this issue all the time. More content, more realistic content. And photography is great, but let's give content to users. That's great. Okay, multiple domain or domain names. What should your domain name? Is a business located in San Jose or wherever? What should be the domain?
Yeah, you want to be a little careful. You want to avoid a few of the common mistakes of like massive keyword stuffing with a lot of hyphens, just because it turns users off. It's not even that it's that bad for Google, it's just users really don't like that. If you can come up with anything memorable, that really helps. Especially if you're an N or something like that, where you have, a name that people can really recognize. And then it certainly doesn't hurt if you can fit in like the name of the location or some sort of city in a very nice way, without like, if you're from Los Angeles, you wouldn't want to say Pasadena, West Hollywood, Beverly Hills, blah, 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 and have 5 different locations. Just one location is fine.
Okay. What about TLDs? If you have hotels all over the place, or let's say they are located in India or they are located anywhere, is it better to buy multiple domains and then go into the Google setting and have different languages website posted on different domains?
A good rule of thumb is if you can get the TLD for the appropriate country, it's always the best. Like if you've got a hotel in India, if you can get .in, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
If it's something that's really, really well known, then you might want to make sure that you've got the .in and the .com.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends. If it's something in France, you might want to have the hotel language in French on .fr and the same thing in English on .com. Now, if it's English the whole way, like it's a Canadian hotel, you might get the .ca, and then maybe you grab the .com so that nobody else can like steal it away or hijack it away from you. But then you could just do a 301 redirect to the .ca
always on one.
and do it always on one. It's hard enough to keep a lot of different domains going. So if you can have a smaller number of domains and develop them well, that often works very well.
But always increase the relevancy of one domain.
Yeah, people aren't going to remember 5 hotel sites. If you've got one that's memorable, that tends to work well.
Okay. Would you suggest buying multiple domains though?
Well, it's kind of funny. I bought mattcutts.com when it was just like, I'll put up a blog on my name. And then people bought mattcutts.org, mattcutts.co.uk, and all these other things, and like Matt Cutts with 1 T, and they made it so the blog looks almost like my blog. So if you're building up a really brandable domain name, it doesn't hurt to think about what are the typos, what are the other ways that people will spell it.
And do 301s.
And do 301s. Don't develop them separately. Just